Hello. Recently, I finished reading a very short novel. It's under 100 pages long, but it makes a really big impact. It's Hunchback by Saou Ichikawa, and it's translated from the Japanese by Barton. And I really want to focus on this and delve into it. I think especially because it's so brief, it would be easy to overlook the power and meaning and complexity of what the author is doing in this story. So it follows a woman named Shaka, who is living in a care facility throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and she lives with a congenital muscle disorder, and this means that her body is continuously hunched over, hence the title Hunchback. And the way this story draws me into her experience, her moment-to-moment experiences and challenges, so that just breathing, having to continuously clear her lungs of mucus, and the challenges of performing everyday things. I really felt that so viscerally, and I don't think I felt that this viscerally since reading the novel Elena Knows, bringing the reader into the experience of a disabled person, and I even felt this as a reader of the privileges that I take for granted as a reader. There's one part where she remarks, being able to see, being able to hold a book, being able to turn its pages, being able to maintain a reading posture, being able to go to a bookstore to buy a book. I loathed the exclusionary machismo of book culture that demanded that its participants meet these 5 criteria of able-bodiedness. And so this story doesn't just represent her physical challenges, but also her emotional and mental state, and why she feels so justifiably angry. How she sees herself as a hunchback and a monster and a non-sexual being, and this isn't so much because of her condition, but because of how she's made to feel because of the society and the standards around her. Very tragically, she remarks at one point that disabled people were not sexual beings. I had assented to the definition that society had created. To do so, I had fed myself a convenient lie. And so, quite reasonably, she is pissed. And she's not a virtuous or even an especially likable person, but that's something I really admire about what the author is doing in this story. I admire it when an author can draw me so much into the experience of someone very different from myself without feeling the need to sanitize their personality in order to make me care about them. And I did really come to care about Shaka and feel for her experiences, even though I question her decisions and her logic. I think the intention of this novel isn't about making the reader feel that the character is right or righteous. It's more about representing her experience with all of the messiness that comes with that. The primary plot of this story concerns a proposition that Shaka makes to a male member of the care home staff, and the morality surrounding this. Is it an act of abuse? Is it an act of charity? Is it merely a fantasy amidst other sexual fantasies that Shaka has? Because the novel itself is structured in a creative way, and that the story is bookended with these sexual stories that Shaka writes online for money under a pseudonym. And these are very explicit explicit, and it makes it evident from, there's a hint of this in the image on the cover of this where you can see sticky stamens. But because of the context of these stories and understanding her character throughout the middle bit of this story, we know that these are her own desires and feelings which have been embedded into these sexual stories that she's writing and publishing. And it expresses her own intense frustrations because of her physical limitations. She won't be able to experience any of these fantasies that she's been writing about. However, she also has a social media account on which she posts a number of very inflammatory things, and at first this feels just like a lashing out, but then as the story goes on, it shows how really there are a lot of more issues and political issues embedded into these inflammatory statements that she's making. And these are to do with laws concerning the rights of disabled people and even whether a disabled baby is allowed to live, because frequently when there's a pregnancy and a medical examination shows that this is a baby who's going to be born with a severe disability, sometimes that pregnancy is aborted. And so looking at really tough questions like this. But she's also aware of her relative helplessness concerning this, and that not many people will read these inflammatory messages that she posts on social media. She remarks, "Of course, the tweetings of a hunchbacked monster would be more twisted than those of someone with a perfectly erect spine." And so she is very angry and she's lashing out, and I understand why she's doing that. But of course, I feel frustrated with her at some points because in terms of material wealth, she is very well off. She was left a lot of money by her parents. So she's effectively rich. And this means that she has a lot more opportunity than many other people with a disability. And of course, this made me feel really frustrated because I thought, why not, instead of writing sexual stories online all day, why not use this material wealth in order to try to enact real political and social change? But it's very easy for me to feel this way sitting here as an able-bodied person and not having all of the experiences and feelings that the character in this story has. And so this story really challenged my assumptions and not only made me think about all of these issues, but made me really feel them through following her perspective in her story. It's also left me pondering the meaning of the ending of this book, and I don't think it's giving any spoilers to talk about this because this is after a revelation that occurs with the main plot point of the story. But then the author reproduces a number of quotations from the Bible, from Ezekiel, concerning God's protection of his chosen people, and then it immediately goes to another sexual story that she's written online, and I'd love to know if, from other readers who have read this, what they think about this and the meaning of this. I mean, what I took from it is that there is a frustration and an anger which can't really be contained, and instead she is just trapped in these kind of fantasies that she's conjuring for herself, and that there's not really any way to break through into the public. I mean, except maybe with this novel itself, which I think it really effectively does. But for the character in the story, she's kind of lost in this mentality which she can't break free from. I think it's important to note that this novel isn't just about inspiring empathy in the reader for those with a disability, but pondering really difficult questions concerning desires and the mechanics of desire and how that is expressed and melds with lots of other messy emotions, and especially how that comes out online, both in expressions of desire, sexual desire, but also frustration and rage about the way we are made to feel in society, and how that is translated through social media. I mean, how many anonymous accounts are there online of people expressing their ideas and feelings, but feeling they need to do so under a pseudonym or anonymously in order to put it out into the world. So I think this is a book that can be easily overlooked because it is so brief, but also because it does include some really explicit sexual content. But the way she structures this story, I really felt for the experience of this character, and I found it a really moving experience, and one that's also left me with a lot to ponder. So if you've read this book, yes, I would love to know your thoughts about it and your reaction to it. Or if you're interested in reading it now, I would love to hear about that. Or if there is any other literature which represents the experience of a disability in a really strong way, then I would love some other suggestions of books like that. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.